Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. When my wife and I bought our cozy little house on Oak Street last year, we thought we'd found our perfect forever home. It was in a friendly neighborhood with big, beautiful trees providing plenty of shade. Our backyard was a decent size, not huge, but big enough for us to entertain friends or just relax on nice days. The one downside was that the fence separating our yard from our neighbor's yard was pretty flimsy. It didn't provide much privacy, but we figured we could always replace it down the road. At first, the neighbor seemed perfectly nice. She introduced herself as Karen soon after we moved in. We exchanged pleasantries and went on with our lives. A few months after we moved in, I started to notice some odd noises coming from the other side of the fence. It sounded like hammering and sawing. I tried peeking through some cracks in the fence, but I couldn't quite make out what was happening. The noises continued sporadically over the next couple weeks. My wife joked that maybe our neighbor was building an addition to her house. I laughed it off, assuming it was just some ordinary backyard construction project. One Saturday morning, I was drinking coffee on our back deck when I heard those noises again. This time they were louder and more frequent. Curiosity got the best of me, so I walked over to the fence and called out, "Everything okay over there?" "Oh, yes, don't mind me," Karen yelled back cheerfully. "Just doing a little backyard upgrade." Her voice sounded closer than usual, but I thought nothing of it. I made a mental note to ask her about the project later. Later that afternoon, my wife and I were gardening when we heard Karen's back door slide open. Then we heard footsteps, followed by her voice. "Oh, hi, neighbors. Just wanted to let you know my new deck is finished. Wanna see?" Before we could respond, Karen appeared right before our eyes, on our side of the fence. Turns out she had built a huge wooden deck that extended from her backyard into ours. Not only that, but she had ripped out a section of our fence to create an opening. I was so shocked I couldn't even form words at first. My wife found her voice before I did. "Karen, what is this?" she asked in disbelief. "It's my new deck," Karen replied enthusiastically, stepping onto the wooden planks she had laid across our lawn. "It doubles my backyard space. Pretty smart idea, huh?" I finally snapped out of my shocked silence. "Karen, this is our property. You can't just build a deck on our property without permission." Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be silly. The property line was moved last month. This is all part of my yard now. But I don't mind sharing." Before I could protest, Karen pulled a framed document out of her back pocket and held it up proudly. "See? This survey from the city last month clearly shows my property line extends 10 feet farther than we originally thought, so really you're trespassing on my deck." I was flabbergasted. I knew for a fact the property line had not moved, and this random document she was flashing did not constitute legal proof of anything. But Karen seemed 100% convinced she was in the right. I tried reasoning with her calmly. "Karen, I'm quite certain the property line has not changed. Our deeds and surveys match the physical markers between our lots. You can't just build on our property without permission, regardless of what documents you have." Karen's cheerful demeanor vanished. She scowled at me angrily. "How dare you! I paid for a legal survey that clearly states this is my land now. Are you accusing me of fraud? I could sue you for slander." Sue me for slander? Now I was really fuming, but I held my tongue. I knew getting into a shouting match would only escalate things. So through gritted teeth, I told Karen she had 24 hours to dismantle the deck or I would take legal action. Karen gasped dramatically. "Are you threatening me? This is my property. I'm calling the police." And with that, she stomped back onto her half of the deck, slammed the ill-fitted fence door shut behind her, and retreated into her house. I immediately pulled out my phone and dialed our lawyer's office. Luckily, he was available to talk. I explained the absurd situation, and he agreed Karen had absolutely no right to build on our property, altered surveys or not. He suggested sending Karen a formal cease and desist letter and filing a police report for trespassing and destruction of property. He would also reach out to the city permit office to check on the legality of the construction. The next day, I adhered to our lawyer's recommendations. I had a feeling Karen wouldn't back down easily, so I wanted to get ahead of her as much as possible legally. After I delivered the sternly worded cease and desist letter to Karen and filed the police report, she somehow got even angrier. She started publicly accusing me of harassment, intimidation, and even vandalism to turn other neighbors against me. Thankfully, no one believed her outlandish claims, especially when code enforcement officers showed up to condemn the illegal deck. In a final act of defiance, Karen refused to remove the deck, so I had to take the matter to court. Karen represented herself and once again tried to use the dubious survey as evidence, but the judge immediately recognized it as a fake document. When confronted, Karen adamantly stuck to her absurd story, but the overwhelming evidence and testimony against her left the judge no choice. He ordered Karen to immediately remove every trace of the deck at her own expense. She was also required to pay fines for violating zoning ordinances and reimburse me for legal fees. Karen caused a huge scene, screaming about suing the judge and the entire court system. She had to be forcibly removed from the courtroom by security. Over the next few weeks, it gave me great satisfaction watching Karen reluctantly dismantle that monstrosity plank by plank. She shot me dirty looks the entire time, and I'm pretty sure I heard her cursing up a storm under her breath too. In the end, I decided to use most of the money awarded to me to build a solid privacy fence around my entire property. The fence company offered to install a spiky decorative topper for free when I told them about my crazy neighbor. I happily accepted. Karen still lives next door, but we haven't spoken since the day she stomped off her illegal deck for the last time. If looks could kill, though, I'm pretty sure I'd be dead 10 times over from her icy glares whenever we both happen to be outside. But at least now I have peace of mind knowing my property is protected from any more of her insane antics. This experience taught me to never again just assume a neighbor is harmless. From now on, I'll be sure to assert my rights at the first sign of trouble. Karen messed with the wrong person when she tried to steal part of my backyard. But thanks to a lot of time, money, and frustration, I feel confident I've seen the last of her nonsense. Our new fortress-like fence should keep her far, far away from what she seems to think is her land. But I know better, and now I can relax on my back deck with a clear view of exactly where my property ends and hers begins. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I used to do part-time volunteer work for a local park. It was pretty basic stuff, like picking up trash and light security, which was just making sure that people aren't damaging the park property or to report anything shady going on. This park was fairly big, and had a jungle gym in the back of it behind the wall of trees. One day I noticed that there were tire marks in the grass right where a turn out of the back is. It's fairly easy to make that turn and doesn't come out of nowhere or anything, so I don't know why someone would go through the grass. Also, keep in mind it was very muddy and cold, so the tire marks were pretty much cemented in after the grass was run over. I call my supervisor and they say that we will fix that area when it gets a little warmer out, which it was going to be later that week. A couple of days later, when I'm near the front of the park patrolling, I notice a minivan coming up from the back of the park. It goes right through the same area of the grass that was previously run over. I couldn't believe I'd just witnessed it happen. The turn doesn't come out of nowhere, and you can clearly see that going straight out will take you through the grass. I start jogging towards the van, waving my arms to get the driver's attention. She stops and rolls down her window, wearing thick sunglasses and looking at me confused at first. She also had 2 kids in the back. Entitled Mom. What, me? Excuse me, miss, I'm one of the park workers. You drove straight through the grass back there. With how muddy it is right there, the grass gets damaged very easily. Entitled Mom. Okay? She clearly didn't care and shocked me a bit that she didn't apologize about it. Me. Well, the grass is going to need to be put back down. I understand if it was a mistake, but please be more careful when coming out from the back. I can tell she's giving me a dirty look, even with her giant sunglasses covering most of her face. Entitled Mom. Whatever, she says rudely and drives out towards the entrance after I say thanks and back away from the van. Fast forward a couple of days, and my supervisor and I had finished flattening the dirt and putting down new seed for that area in the morning. I was pretty happy with how it turned out, and the grass would look better than it did before once it grew. Later that day, when I come back to patrol the park, I notice the same minivan in the back parking lot. I head over to the jungle gym area, and of course I see the entitled mom on a bench looking at her phone while her kids are playing. I was hoping in the back of my mind that she would have listened to me yesterday, but judging from how she acted, I was doubtful. I did a couple of walks around the back area, making sure there wasn't any trash, and when I saw her tell the kids it was time to go, I sprinted towards the front of the park entrance, stood in front of a car at the front, and put on my own pair of sunglasses. I keep them in a fanny pack along with some medical supplies and my phone, so that she wouldn't recognize me and stay on the path, like how you slow down on the road when passing a police officer. Once her van starts coming up, I am watching in disbelief as once again she doesn't turn and goes right through the same area again that we had just fixed up this morning. I was pissed now. I walk up to her van, this time being in the middle of the pavement, and she stops when I approach, rolling down her window and giving me a pissed look that I stopped her again. Entitled Mom, "Oh my God, what do you want?" Me, "Miss, you ran over that area again. We had finished fixing it this morning and you just ran it over." Entitled Mom, "So? It's just some grass. You should just make that whole area pavement so it won't get ran over." Me, "You can clearly see that the grass is in front of you when you drive up from the back area. It doesn't come out of nowhere and we've never had anyone run over that area. Only you." I had a frustrated tone in my voice, but I was still trying to be polite. Her kids in the back were glued to their tablets and weren't paying any mind to me other than when they heard their mom swear. They looked to be around 6. 8, I think. She gives me one more nasty look before rolling up her window and driving away. She didn't even respond to my last point. Also, she almost ran over my foot since she didn't wait for me to back away from her van before driving off. That was my tipping point. I call my supervisor again and tell him what happened. I could tell he was pretty pissed over the phone, but he said that he had a plan to stop that area from getting run over anymore. I meet him on Friday morning, and he has this giant boulder in the back of his pickup truck. I instantly knew what we were going to be doing with it. After some work getting it down, digging up the dirt, and wedging it into place, we finished putting the boulder in. I had to admit that it made me sad that there was now this eyesore of a rock there, and all our work previously was for nothing, but I was happy the entitled mom wouldn't be running over that area anymore. Later that day, I'm in the back picking up trash when I see the same minivan pull into the parking lot. I know it's the entitled mom and her kids because I remember their license plate this time. I pay no mind to them, knowing that she couldn't run over the grass again when they leave now. Later on, I was cleaning some bird poop off a statue when I heard a loud crash sound that came from the front. I run over to where it came from, shocked as I see the entitled mother's van with the giant boulder we put down wedged between her tire and the bumper of her car. She gets out of the van in shock at what happened, swearing and shouting. I personally didn't want to damage her car, just realized she couldn't drive through the grass anymore, so I did feel some guilt at seeing the giant boulder wedged in her car. I came over to the other side to see that the wheel was off the ground slightly, and the front bumper was wedged atop the boulder. I don't know how she even managed that, honestly. She sees me and immediately gets a look of pure, concentrated anger. "Entitled Mom! You!" She starts walking up to me, stomping her feet. "You put that rock there, didn't you, a-hole?" Me, "Miss, my supervisor brought that boulder in this morning for that spot because you were running over the grass. I don't know how you even hit it since, again, you can clearly see it coming from the back." Entitled Mom, "I was texting my friend, you a-hole, you're going to pay for this damage." Me, "Yeah, I don't think so." She fumes and heads back to her car. She has her 2 kids get out and go sit at a nearby table, both still playing on their tablets. Entitled Mom, though, got back in the car and is on the phone. A few minutes later, she tells me she called the police and that I'm going to be arrested for intentionally damaging her property. I admit I was a bit worried that the story she gave them probably wasn't the truth, so I called my supervisor again. He got here even before the police did. I saw him laughing as he pulled up and saw the situation. He walks up to the entitled mom and explains who he is, and she starts yelling at him about how she's going to sue and have him and myself arrested for the damage. A few minutes later, the police pull up. She tells them that we intentionally put that rock there to damage her car. But we explained to the officers that she had driven over that grass several times, even after we had fixed it, and we put that boulder down to keep her and others from driving through the grass. The police got some more information from us and told the entitled mom that we were in the right to put the boulder down and aren't liable for her poor driving. Entitled mom frustratedly tells her kids to get back in the car and actually starts to back out off the boulder. My supervisor, the officers, and I all watch as the boulder is scraping up the bottom of her car as she backs out. Once off it, her front bumper slams on the pavement and is now hanging down off the left side. Something under her car was also touching the pavement, which was apparent as she started to drive away, and the sound of something scraping against the road could be heard. The officers stop her and tell her that her car is now not safe to drive on the road, and she needs to get it towed. My supervisor and I went home shortly after, smiling and laughing at what had happened that day. I can safely assume now she won't be going over that grass anymore. The next one is a petty revenge story. I work from home full-time and rarely drive unless I'm grocery shopping or out for an appointment. In my complex, there are non-reserved spots and reserved spots in the underground garage, all of which are not assigned. As long as you have a reserved sticker on your vehicle, any of the reserved spots, which are all labeled reserved, are fair game. I have a non-reserved sticker because it's $40 cheaper than the reserved pass. I was coming back from an appointment and turned into my neighbor's reserved spot so that I could back my car into the open, non-reserved spot behind me. Lo and behold, a male Karen in his rusty 2007 RAV4 starts honking at me for being in his spot, telling me that I can't park there because I don't have a reserved sticker. I told him I was only backing out. I probably should have let it go, but his Karen-ness pissed me off so much. As I was getting on the elevator, I quickly realized he only wanted to park there because it was right next to the elevator. A light bulb went off in my head, and I made my way to the rental office. It's in the same building, and asked to upgrade my parking pass. It's an extra $40 I'll be shelling out, but it's worth the petty revenge. I'm waiting for him to leave for work tomorrow so I can move my car into his spot and leave it there for God knows how long. There are perks to being fully remote. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I'm from Luxembourg, a tiny country between Germany, France, and Belgium. In order to get the point of the story, I need to lay some groundwork. Our educational system is a bit unique, since a strong emphasis is put on learning foreign languages. Thus, kids are alphabetized in German at the age of 6, even though for natives the mother tongue is Luxembourgish. At age 7, French is added, and English at the age of 13, except if they opt for Latin, then they start English courses a year later. Most people are taught all 3 languages until they graduate from high school. Another special thing about Luxembourg is that it only has one single university, and only for a couple of decades now. Thus, there is a certain tradition of Luxembourgian youth studying abroad. A couple of friends of mine enrolled in Strasbourg University, one studying biology, the other law. The university has a policy that during the first year you have to pick at least one course that is not your main subject, and most students from Luxembourg pick German. Having had 13 years of classes in German, most are about as fluent as native speakers, so it makes for an easy pass. For years they were allowed to enroll and only show up for the exam, which they always aced. So they complied with the policy, but didn't lose any time, but could use it to get used to their new hometown and concentrate on their main subjects. But not my friends. The new professor for the German class announced that whoever was absent more than twice during a semester would fail. The friends were quite annoyed, but did comply. But as it turned out, the professor wasn't very proficient in German, so she made frequent mistakes, especially concerning the right choice of prepositions and, before all, grammatical cases which are quite tricky in German for non-native speakers, and some native speakers too. So the 2 friends had their fun raising their hand whenever they noticed a mistake, and corrected the professor, who after a couple of sessions grew very disgruntled. After a month of being corrected over and over again by 2 of her students, the mandatory presence was dropped again for students from Luxembourg. The next one is an entitled people story. My fiancé and I are thinking of spending Christmas in South Korea with his family. I met him when he was here on a student visa. He went back to his country and sadly he was denied. So he's going for another interview in November, and if he fails that one, we're going to proceed with the K1 fiancé visa. We figured since my job gives me 5 months throughout the year of vacation time, I can visit South Korea quite often. Then, when he gets approved for the K1, he'll come back here within that time frame, and I know it's getting much shorter than it used to be. This is all things my parents know about, and they supported me in spending Christmas with him if his next visa gets denied. My fiancé has made it clear that he wants to cover all costs of my ticket when I travel to South Korea. He also might be working when I'll be there, which is December 22nd, 30th, or 31st. Unfortunately, since I have work, I can't be there longer, and that's the only vacation time I have for DEC. My fiancé might be working when I'm there, and we'll spend time together after he has work. And he'll be back home around 6:30 or 7 p.m. I don't care at all as long as we have time together. That's all that matters to me. It will also be a low-key, relaxing vacation, so we won't be doing anything too touristy. My mom knows I might be going and said I'm going to a country of people that don't celebrate Christmas. She also went on by saying she didn't know Christmas meant nothing to me, and if I go, then I'll ruin Christmas. I suggested to her that we can have a nice dinner before I go or when I come back. She complained it's not the same. Then okay, have nothing if that's what you want. I tried giving her a good backup option so we can still celebrate the holiday. She even told me that she told her friend I won't be here for Christmas. And her friend grabbed her arm and said, "No, not Christmas, she has to be here. I can't with the dramatics. It's not like my fiancé has family and she's the only one that matters." I feel so bad for his family who probably wants to see me. I even tried to mention that point to her and she said, "Well, Koreans aren't Christmas people, so it shouldn't matter to his parents." She then further manipulated the situation by saying that my fiancé needs to be more respectful towards me and my family because he should know how important Christmas is to them and that she feels he's manipulating me into spending Christmas with him. She also said that he's so irrational with money and she's worried about our future over the way he is with money. She even tried pushing me to suggest Europe to him instead because to her, they celebrate Christmas there, and emphasized it's a waste of money to go to Korea, and I'll be jet-lagged when I come back. To that, I insist it's his money, and it's up to him and me where we want to celebrate Christmas. If I'm so jet-lagged, then I'll use one of my sick days, and I'm sure we'll have a relaxing vacation. It won't be too action-packed. I was talking to my dad the other day, and my mom overheard us talking. I was telling him that my fiance's mom mentioned she wants me to come for Christmas no matter what. I told my dad that it's so nice to see how much she likes me. My mom said, "She needs to know Christmas is important to us." I said to her, "That means nothing. She's allowed to miss me." Then my mom said how Christmas is important, and she needs to make the exception for her. I told my mom she doesn't need to make any exception, and she's a very lovely woman, and she's allowed to want to see me. I just don't know what to do when it comes time, and if my fiancé and I end up having Christmas in Korea. Is my mom proving a point and I'm being oblivious? Or does my mom have no place to tell me what to do? Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.